party or are we
Well,
doing that?
no, that's not my,
You're like we're in church.
that's not my fault. The only thing is because the computer
Well,
won't
what
let
can
me
we do
play
to
two
correct
things
it?
at the
What
same
is
time.
the
Just
solution?
sit here and go,
What is the solution?
There's no solution really. I mean, I just have to, hit it whenever it clicks in.
You can use a beef cube, so you don't have to right on top of it. Yeah, you do like.
Oh, somebody took the plant down.
I put the plan down.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay.
That's a new video released by the Islamic terror
All right.
group Boko Haram.
Hey, what I may do, Robert? I'm going to say, let's get Robert in on the mix here. Robert, to look at all of your work.
During last month, leaders
What'd you say?
you're not professional like
Do them
that.
all.
What do you mean?
Huh?
You're in the middle of a thought and then
This
you
one
just
is not going to go on
like,
YouTube, I can tell you that right now.
He said 1 minute, and that was it.
Huh?
Yeah,
Where am I?
Yeah, it just went from one thought to another.
Is anybody that want to late model race besides Keith that Waterford
No.
here, or that's
No,
it? It's over.
that's it.
Secretary Jay
That's-
Carney
What's his name? Wrecked his car really bad too, so he might not be back for another week or two. Palmer.
Yeah. That was not last week, the week before.
Yeah, I had to fix his rear end.
City's standard hotel
Rephrase that.
investigating
You had to fix.
20.
inside a hotel elevator.
Huh?
A
20.
clip showed Beyonce's husband,
All right, now we're
Jay-Z,
going to get professional.
Okay.
We're rolling?
Rolling.
All right.
Beyonce's presence.
The mic, we all know that the button's going to get stuck.
Fox News Radio.
Coming up tonight on Speedway Line Report Radio, presented to you by Shaler Acura of Manchester, Connecticut. Joining Ricky Rotundo and myself, we're going to talk about mud racing with our guest co-host Tina Olszewski. Tina O, we're going to call her throughout the evening. And later on in the show, we're going to speak to SK Light Modified driver Stephen Kopcik. How's he been doing so far in the early season over at Stafford Motor Speedway? And when it comes to winning big money in open wheel modified races, what name comes to mind? Well, it should be Matt Hirschman. We're going to talk to him about his victory at Lee USA Speedway yesterday afternoon. And our fourth guest of the evening, Nick Teto from YankeeRacer.com. And we'll take your phone calls at 203-757-1320. Today is Monday, May 12th, 2014. And Speedway Line Report Radio is headed your way right now.
The green flag is in the air, and it's time for the Speedway Line Report, presented by Shaler Acura of Manchester, broadcasting from our WATR studios in Waterbury, Connecticut, and streaming live around the world. It's 90 minutes of auto racing news. Now, here's
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Speedway Line Report Radio. Gary Danko, all set to go for another edition of Speedway Line Report Radio, right alongside with my co-host, Rocket Rick Rotundo from R&R Fabrication. Ricky's also the crew chief on Eric Burns SK Modified that competes over at the Stafford Motor Speedway. This show is also being brought to you by Embroidery Works, JM Montesano Auto Body, Jim's Lawn Care Service, Grotto Restaurant,
And your car, your choice, the Auto Body Association of Connecticut.
and don't forget we're also streaming online at WATR.com. And you can also catch us by just clicking onto SpeedwayLineReport.com. Former modified driver Tom Ormsby, for many years now, has been putting my show up onto his website. Just go to SpeedwayLineReport.com. You can listen to us live there, or you can go back and revisit any of our shows. Well, Ricky, Stafford Motor Speedway, they got rained out this past Friday night. So what did that mean for work on the Eric Burnt car?
Just some light stuff on the backup car to get that stuff going. You know, we've always talked about how there's always something to do with the race car shop, so we had some light stuff to do over the weekend, and then I think everybody's gonna be down there tomorrow or Wednesday or something to work on the car. But it's just like everybody else, you're always gonna be doing something on the cars, and it was good. Stafford called it early to give everybody, a chance, not to go up there and everything else to waste time. So that was good on that part. But Waterford got their race in, so I ended up getting some work from that race.
Okay, from the SK Modified
Yeah.
or the SK Lights?
The SK Modified, Zed Pulio got wrecked pretty good there, so I got a bunch of parts I gotta make for them guys now.
Okay, and one of our guests now working his way into our Waterbury studio, Stephen Kopcik, who runs an SK Light over at Stafford Motor Speedway. We're going to be talking to him coming up a little bit later on in the show. Before we go to commercial break, on a sad note, longtime competitor Danny Field, who raced mini stocks over at Waterford Speed Bowl, the Thompson International Speedway, passed away late last week after his battle with cancer. I knew Danny. He was really a tough competitor. He knew how to win races. He knew how to win championships. Our condolences go out to the entire Field family and friends.
In the market for a new Acura, there's only one place to go.
Gotta get that moment of silence. So,
Now, just throw a new thing, because you guys have been to the show before. When we say mics are cold, but we also got the YouTube guy, Robert Baggett. We also got to be careful sometimes because we have to make sure that, are we rolling?
Yes, we're rolling.
Oh, we're still rolling, but yeah, why don't you turn it off for a minute or two? How you guys been? If the button gets stuck again, Ricky, what are we
well,
doing
no,
now?
that's not my,
You're like we're in church.
that's not my fault. The only thing is because the computer
Well,
will
what
let
can
me
we do
play
to
two
correct
things
it?
at the
What
same
is
time.
the
Just sit here and go,
What is the solution?
There's no solution really. I mean, I just have to, hit it whenever it clicks.
You can use the food, so you don't have to right on top of it.
Virus is relatively new for humans, but it's been found in
Yeah, you do like.
Oh, somebody took the plant down.
in Miami. Evan Bragg
I put the plan down.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay.
That's a new video released by the Islamic terror
All right.
group Boko Haram.
Hey, what I may do, Robert? I'm going to say, let's get Robert in on the mix here. Robert, to look at all of your work.
Last month, leaders
What'd you say?
you're not professional like that. Huh?
You're in the middle of a thought and then
This
it's
one
just
is not going to go on
away.
YouTube, I can tell you that right now.
He said 1 minute and that was it.
Huh?
Yeah,
Where am I?
Yeah, it just went from one thought to another.
Is anybody that want to live on the race besides Keith that Waterford
No.
here, or that's
That's
it? It's over.
that's it.
Secretary Jake
That's-
Carney
What's his name? Wrecked his car really bad too, so he might not be back for another week or two. Palmer.
Yeah, yeah. That was not last week, the week before.
Yeah, I had to fix his
New York
rear end.
City's standard hotel
Rephrase that.
investigating
You had to fix.
20.
inside a hotel elevator.
Huh?
A
20.
picture showed Beyonce's husband,
All right, now we're
Jay-Z,
going to get professional.
Okay.
We're rolling?
Rolling.
All right.
Beyonce's presence.
The mic, we all know that the button's going to get stuck.
I joined us here at Fox News Radio.
Coming up tonight on Speedway Line Report Radio, presented to you by Shaler Acura of Manchester, Connecticut. Joining Ricky Rotundo and myself, we're going to talk about mud racing with our guest co-host Tina Olszewski. Tina O, we're going to call her throughout the evening. And later on in the show, we're going to speak to SK Light Modified driver Stephen Kopcik. How's he been doing so far in the early season over at Stafford Motor Speedway? And when it comes to winning big money in open wheel modified races, what name comes to mind? Well, it should be Matt Hirschman. We're going to talk to him about his victory at Lee USA Speedway yesterday afternoon. And our fourth guest of the evening, Nick Teto from YankeeRacer.com. And we'll take your phone calls at 203-757-1320. Today is Monday, May 12th, 2014. And Speedway Line Report Radio is headed your way right now.
The green flag is in the air, and it's time for the Speedway Line Report, presented by Shaler Acura of Manchester. Broadcasting from our WATR studios in Waterbury, Connecticut, and streaming live around the world, it's 90 minutes of auto racing news. Now, here's
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Speedway Line Report Radio. Gary Danko, all set to go for another edition of Speedway Line Report Radio, right alongside with my co-host, Rocket Rick Rotundo from R&R Fabrication. Ricky's also the crew chief on Eric Burns SK Modified that competes over at the Stafford Motor Speedway. This show is also being brought to you by Embroidery Works, JM Montesano Auto Body, Jim's Lawn Care Service, Grotto Restaurant,
And your car, your choice, the Auto Body Association of Connecticut.
and don't forget we're also streaming online at WATR.com, and you can also catch us by just clicking onto SpeedwayLineReport.com. Former modified driver Tom Ormsby, for many years now, has been putting my show up onto his website. Just go to SpeedwayLineReport.com. You can listen to us live there, or you can go back and revisit any of our shows. Well, Ricky, Stafford Motor Speedway, they got rained out this past Friday night. So what did that mean for work on the Eric Burnt car?
Just some light stuff on the backup car to get that stuff going. You know, we've always talked about how there's always something to do with the race car shop, so we had some light stuff to do over the weekend, and then I think everybody's gonna be down there tomorrow or Wednesday or something to work on the car. But just like everybody else, you're always gonna be doing something on the cars, and it was good. Stafford called it early to give everybody, you know, a chance not to go up there and everything else to waste time, so that was good on that part. And, but Waterford got their race in, so I ended up getting some work from that race.
Okay, from the SK Modified
Yeah.
or the SK Lights?
The SK Modified, Zed Pulio got wrecked pretty good there, so I got a bunch of parts I gotta make for them guys now.
Okay, and one of our guests now working his way into our Waterbury studios, Stephen Kopcik, who runs an SK Light over at Stafford Motor Speedway. We're going to be talking to him coming up a little bit later on in the show. Before we go to commercial break, on a sad note, longtime competitor Danny Field, who raced mini stocks over at Waterford Speed Bowl, the Thompson International Speedway, passed away late last week after his battle with cancer. I knew Danny. He was really a tough competitor. He knew how to win races. He knew how to win championships. Our condolences go out to the entire Field family and friends.
In the market for a new Acura, there's only one place to go.
Gotta get that moment of silence. So,
Now, just throw a new thing, because you guys have been to the show before. When we say mics are cold, but we also got the YouTube guy, Robert Baggett. We also got to be careful sometimes because we have to make sure that, are we rolling?
Yes, we're rolling.
Oh, we're still rolling, but yeah, why don't you turn it off for a minute or two? How you guys been?
Almost everything, every time, and had an attitude like, I am God, hear me roar. And I wound up marrying the guy a few years later. So, wound up selling my circle track car because we didn't want to be in two separate states, you know, while each other was racing. So he let me drive his car, and I actually won the first race that I drove on the hill. And I just said, fine, if I can go fast, I'll do it, and wound up building my own car. And we've never shared a car. We've always had his and her cars and been competitive in the same class against each other now all these years.
Talk about some of the racetracks that you go to.
Well, we travel a national scene, which is NMRO, National Mud Racing Organization, which is a lot of travel. And Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania is their closest one to here to Connecticut. We do Indianapolis, Indiana, and Lima, Ohio. And then we just started a new Northeast MRA Regional Race Series, which is all New England, which is really cool because people want to get away for a weekend. New England is beautiful, so you can come watch a little bit of racing and go sightseeing. We have several events in New York, Brookfield, New York, at Madison County Fairgrounds. We do Oxford, Maine. They have a whole facility set up just for us. And Claremont Speedway, which is also a circle track, NASCAR track, set up they built a whole facility for us. So not only do they have deep pit mud racing, which there's a difference between mud bogging and mud racing. They have the deep pit mud bog, and they also have what they call fast track, which is what I do, which is like NHRA drag racing on dirt.
And so I just want to get back just one step ago. So you did listen to Hear Me Roar then, right?
Yes. Yes.
I didn't want to interrupt you when you were going there, but I just wanted to point that out that his roar worked.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
And we were talking earlier about the mud bogs compared to the, you know, because he's had the deep mud bogs. And
Right.
And like I said, I'm really not a fan of getting that dirty.
Well, that's a good thing about it.
Even as a spectator, I wouldn't want to be getting dirty. So
Well, you'd be happy to know that they have fast track racing, which is what I do. And the faster you go, you don't get dirty. It's basically turned up topsoil, which is what they call mud for us. It's thick, it's rutted, it's not really rutted, but it's bumpy. It's a bumpy ride. So the slower you go, you really can't see. So the better thing is put the foot to the floor and you've got good vision. The mud bogs it's a different, they dig a pit or build a pit up and it's very deep, thick, soupy, nasty stuff you don't like mud. And these guys love it, and girls, they love it. It takes them, some take 3-4 minutes to get through, and some get through it in 2 minutes, and depending on the build of the track. Our tracks, if you're any slower than 2.5 seconds, you're not really going that fast. So it's definitely a fast track. It's NHRA style, pro Christmas tree, the whole 9 yards.
Now, is there prize money?
Yes, there's.
Talk about some of the purses.
NMRO, I run the open class, which is the top class at all the events. It's the highest up you can go, as far as, you can't really do any more than that. There's nowhere else to go. They have 2 classes for open. It's called Class 5 and 6, which is, Class 5 is distinguished as you use cut tires on the back. So guys will hand cut their tires, or they'll call Mickey Thompson and order tires, things like that. They're like 44-inch size cut tires, so they're really cool. And then Class 6 is what's called scoop tires. And what that is an actual drag racing slick with scoops adhered to them. And they give you the best traction. It's the most amazing feeling. I mean, it sucks getting towed down to the start line because you're bump, 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 bump on them. As soon as you hit a throttle, it's smooth as glass. It's awesome. So that distinguishes the 2 top classes. The purse money, you're not going to make a living at anything you do these days unless you're Joey Logano, let's face it. So we do it for fun. It does, we have some sponsorship that goes on, that helps us out, which we're very grateful for. But mostly we're independents. And we go because we love it, and it's a good time. And the people are phenomenal.
How many races are on a schedule?
Oh, it could average anywhere from 6 a year. There's races all over the place. Everybody pretty much sets up their own schedule. With the new Northeast Series that we're running, we've got 6 alone here in New England. I've got 3 with NMRO, and then I have another race out in Ohio at Gravel-Rama in Cleves, Ohio, which is the biggest 4-wheel drive event there is. And I do that every year. So I average around 12 races a year.
Okay. Now talk about the engine. Now I saw when you were showing us on YouTube, a lot of horsepower there. How much does an engine cost in your division?
Well, I can't speak for everybody. Everybody does everything differently. A lot of guys are machinists. They can do their own work. I have a guy who freshens my engine every year, Auto Machine, out of East Windsor, Connecticut, Dave Miller. He does a lot of the circle track cars. I'm sure you guys have heard of him. Phenomenal guy. My husband has an engine builder out of Buffalo, New York. He's a pro mod, championship pro mod racer, Mike Janis for NHRA. So him and I don't do the same thing, even though we're out of the same garage. You can spend as much as you want or as little as you want. It depends how competitive you want to be. I personally want to be in the top 10 every weekend, and my husband wants to be in the top 3. I try not to overshoot my boundaries. I usually wind up doing better than I expect. But you can spend a good penny, and still not do good. So it all depends. Everybody runs different combinations. We have different size blowers, different brand blowers. Everything is different on each individual car.
And is there a lot of rules for the motors, or is it kind of like open a bit with the motors and stuff like that?
For my class, it's open. The car has to weigh a minimum amount of weight. I think it's 2,450 pounds with driver, gear, and fuel. And we get weighed, the top 5 get weighed after every race. The engines are open. We just can't run methanol at all the national event. Nitromethane. We do run methanol. So you can't run nitromethane. But I can run nitromethane out at that one race in Ohio at the Gravel-Rama event, but I don't want to detonate anything.
How many competitors in your division on a given weekend?
Well, Indy is usually our biggest event, and there was 30 cars there last year, and we all get 2 passes, to try to beat our time. So it goes anywhere from, I've ran where there's only 5 of us, and then I've run where there's 30 or 40 of us. So it'll average depending on what part of the country you're in and who travels how far.
And how many times are you actually getting out onto the track?
You get out 2 times on Saturday and 2 passes on Sunday. There's no qualifying, there's no test passes. It's, you know, and I can't enter into another class because there are no classes above me. But the guys who run the lower classes can always bump up into more classes, so they can run 100 times. But I can only run twice on Saturday and twice on Sunday.
Is everything you do a 2-day event, or do they get it on a 1 day?
Most everything. Claremont is a 1-day event. It's a Sunday. But most everything else, the NMRO events are actually 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, which is phenomenal. If you ever want to go to a weekend away, Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania is the best. It's truck show. They must have over 100 trucks. They have monster trucks, tough truck competition, burnout competition, deep bogs, fast track. There's always something going on at the jamborees. And MRA is going to follow through with that too.
It must be just like with the season openers and stuff that we have, you know, like Stafford's first time is 3 days, Thompson's first time is 3 days, and the last race of the year, so that's what it sounds like it's, you know, they get as much as they can into them 3 days as they possibly can to show a big event.
Absolutely. There is not one moment of downtime at any of the jamborees at all. And the same thing with the Northeast MRA series that's coming up now. They're going to keep stuff going every minute. You're not going to be able to sit or, you know, quick go get something to drink and eat and come back because you don't want to miss anything.
Okay, just a couple minutes, we're going to get to our next guest, Stephen Kopcik, who runs an SK Modified. So, Tina, anything more that you want to add, your sponsors, or anything else you want to get out before we shift gears?
Well, I'd like to, you know, give my email address if anybody's interested in anything, you know, even just to look it up on YouTube or whatever, they can email me and I can send them links or information. And, you know, it's not an expensive event to get into. Usually you can buy a weekend pass less than what you can get into Riverside for these days. So my email is ftoracing@aol.com. Feel free to email me. I will get right back to you with any information you're looking for, even if you want to come over and see the cars and get an idea. You know, that's what we're about. We want to promote this, get this out
Sure.
there. I do car shows for charities, so if anybody needs to, you know, get anything, call me. I'll take my car down, put it on display for them. It's not a, you know, that's what it's about.
Sure.
I would like to thank Auto Machine in East Windsor, Connecticut, building me the best motor I had last year, and I'm ready for this year. Jansen Racing Engines out of Buffalo, New York. Z1 Racing Supplies out of Ghent, New York. Overtime CNC out of Michigan. And Kilby Racing Chassis. Blaine Kilby builds the best chassis I've ever had. So we're having a good time, and I really want to open up the sport to everybody and open their eyes to it.
And I know you're going to be back through the course of the season here on Speedway Line Report Radio. So we'll learn more because we're going to bring you in as a guest co-host with Ricky and myself. So we'll learn more about that.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Ricky, you had a question?
Well, I was just going to ask it, we talked briefly, but is there any other girls that race in that class besides yourself?
No.
Or should I say women? I don't want to.
Nope, you're fine.
I don't want to get hit in the back of the
No, I'm the only female in the blower car open class. I have a couple of records that I'm proud of at different tracks and things like that. And, you know, it's funny because that's one of the biggest questions I get is what's it like to be a girl? Even when I was in my mini stock, what's it like? I don't know what it's like to be a girl in a race car. When you put a helmet on, you're a driver. There's nothing to distinguish between the two. And the one thing that's always bothered me is this powder puff. I hate that. If you want to drive, you put a helmet on, nobody knows what's under the helmet, get out there and drive your heart out.
Now, you said you had records at these other tracks. I'm just asking because I got 3 sisters. I grew up with a family of all women and stuff like that, and it was always equal. As far as I'm concerned, it's equal. I don't care. You know, one or the other, don't care. When they say that you have the record, do they say it's the record, or do they say it's the female record?
Okay, well,
I'm just curious.
I do have the female record at Munson Hill Climb. It's a big hill climb up there. It's a drag race up the side of a mountain. And I'm the first and only woman to this day to ever win the title of King of the Mountain. So I'm very proud of that. No girl has ever even attempted it. You know, I wish they would. You know, I'm very supportive of everybody. And out in Ohio, I was the fastest driver out of over 200 plus cars for the weekend, women and men, and I nailed that one too. And this will be my, I have 10 years straight of fastest woman at that track also, so I'm pretty proud of all those titles.
So, in other words, you're saying that's your track.
Yeah, and up in Oxford, Maine, I hold the fastest time. I'm the fastest open car up there. Last year I set the track record. I was the only girl in my class. It's for all classes, but I'm the driver. I did it over the men and everything. I beat them all. I
There you
took
go.
names and that was it.
give your email address one more time?
It's ftoracing@aol.com.
Okay. All right. So if you want to check out more about mud racing, you can go to YouTube as well. And there's a lot of great clips up on there. So check that out. When we come back, we're going to talk to a driver that competes over at the Stafford Motor Speedway. He runs in the SK Light Modified Division. We'll find out how his 2 races so far in 2014 have gone. You're listening to the Speedway Line Report Radio on WATR 1320 AM. We're also streaming online at WATR.com and SpeedwayLineReport.com. We're back right after this.
Elsewhere, Shaler Acura in Manchester.
Once we get going back,
Yeah.
you're gonna just call Matt Hirschman. Tell him we'll get him at 6:45.
Okay.
Okay, and then I'll take him right to 7.
So about 10 minutes.
Yeah, tell him
We're
just
running about 10
a
minutes
yeah, a
late.
little bit behind,
Yeah.
and just tell him, somewhere around 6:45.
Okay.
All right. Or remember, you gotta work them.
A little bit. Focused on my own car. Oh, well, how am I
Tell
gonna
you,
do that?
you know what? What I'm gonna do? I'm gonna give you my cell phone, and I'm gonna let you call.
Yeah.
He's focusing more on that car.
Yeah, but is that still gonna force me to talk while you're
No.
from where I am?
No. Relax, Tom. Relax.
Yeah, I saw you a couple times.
Want a drink?
So they call my nerves.
Right?
Write this number down.
Last year off,
Hold
had
on.
a little fun this year, see what happens.
647-7077. Nowhere else but Shaler Acura.
'Cause see what he's got to do for the audio for Robert. He's got to play with the so he can get the audio from there. So he's got to play with the speakers. You
Ready.
610-248-8332.
8332.
Area code 610-248-8332.
Yep. Okay.
Oh, you know what? You'll be able to go and call him.
Yeah,
because
because
they'll be on.
Yeah.
That's right. Trying to get used to that with the thing, with the video in here.
How long you been doing that?
Since the beginning of this year. This is our 6th show of the
I'll
year.
check it out on YouTube. Someone will report money.
How's everybody at the Nutmeg Car Club? Okay.
I haven't been over there.
I need a schedule for that.
Huh?
I need a schedule for that.
Go online.
I did. It doesn't. It just shows a calendar with.
You're
It's all
right.
messed
I went
up.
on there too, and when you click on, there's nothing there. You're
it's
right.
a regular calendar. There's
I'll,
nothing on there.
Here we go.
Call John tonight.
Yeah,
I'll get your email.
Thank you.
To you by Shaler Acura.
Your car, your choice. The Auto Body Association of Connecticut.
This show is also being brought to you by Jim's Lawn Care Service out of Cheshire, Connecticut. When it comes to maintenance and lawn care, give Jim's Lawn Care Service out of Cheshire a call today at 203-272-2054. 203-272-2054 for Jim's Lawn Care Service out of Cheshire, Connecticut. And Ricky, of course, he was all concerned and wanted to know how Jeff Rocco made out this week. And I didn't get a chance to call Jim from Jim's Lawn Care Service to let him know that last week's guest co-host, Jeff Rocco, started on the pin yesterday in that big race at the USA Speedway, led some laps, and then kind of faded back a little bit.
Yeah, he thought about it a lot and starting on the pole, thinking about what he was going to do and everything else, and having to come, changing the tire and whatnot. He was, my best bet is burn the car up and get some lap money. So that's what he did, and he ended up, I guess, pulling almost $4,000 yesterday for the race.
Wow.
So I mean, that's second place paid $3,000, and he finished 15th.
Wow. No.
So I mean, he did the smart thing as far as racing. I mean, he just, I think it worked out great for the kid. You made some money racing, and how often you do that? And so he did the smartest thing he could do, is to generate money so he can keep going on the MRS.
Sure.
So that was good for him.
And of course, we're going to talk to the winner from yesterday at Lee USA Speedway. Matt Hirschman is going to join us a little bit later on. Also, Nick Teto from YankeeRacer.com also scheduled to join us. But our next guest all set and ready to
Take
go.
that one, I'll share this.
He runs an SK Light Modified over at the Stafford Motor Speedway. He started out racing over at the Nutmeg Kart Club, where he did very, very well. And then the last couple of seasons, he was running Legend cars, did well there, and now has moved on to SK Lights. And Steve Kopcik now joins us. Stephen, how are you?
I'm good, how are you, Gary?
I'm doing very well. Let's kick off the conversation. SK Light Modified in Stafford Motor Speedway. First two races, how are things been going?
They've been going all right. First race, we just kind of tried to get a feel for it. I think we started 16th and finished 14th. But it started to rain, so they red checkered it. But I mean, I learned a lot the first race, got some good seat time, and just made me better for the second one. And the second one we finished, we started 14th, came up to 7th, and then something broke in the left front, so we weren't able to finish. But we had a good run going.
So it's all kind of new for you, open wheel, modified race car. Of course, you're still working with Michael Jarvis. So you know definitely how to work on these race cars with your dad Nick, who's here in our Waterbury studio as well. So what's been the biggest thing that you need to learn about an open wheel modified?
Modifieds are a little bit easier to drive than the Legend car. The hardest part is doing the same thing in every corner and being consistent and hitting your marks. And I mean, racing's a lot tighter. Cars obviously a lot bigger than a Legends car was, so it took me a little while to get used to. But we're getting it. We were third fastest last race, so just wish it was too bad we weren't able to finish that one.
And Tina, I can tell you when I was announcing over at the Nutmeg Card Club, that's where I met Nick and his son Steven. Good competitor, good race cars, did very, very well. And then, as he mentioned, moved on to running Legends cars, where he did very well for, I think, 2 years you ran Legend cars, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And
We ran Legends at the Waterford Speed Bowl the whole first year, and then the second year we traveled around like Seekonk, Bethel, and Seekonk, Bethel, and Waterford mainly. Got a couple wins. It was a good year.
good. And then what was the decision to finally go open wheel SK Light modified racing?
It was time to get out of Legends. Legends were, I don't know, like the last two races were rough. And I always wanted to, we always wanted to go to modifieds. Race at Stafford in the weekly division, so that's what we did. It worked out good.
And your dad and yourself still working on Michael Jarvis's car?
Yeah, we help him out as much as we can. We run back and forth a little bit, but I'm focused on my car, trying to get it better and better and going over stuff.
And at Stafford, what kind of type of car do you run there?
SK Light modified.
And that's a chassis car?
Yeah, CD car, yeah.
It's the same as Michael's car, so you have a little experience with the car itself because you've been helping him.
Yeah. Well, it's a different style chassis. I mean, they're both CD cars, but different style and different front end style. So we know. I mean, we can use some stuff, but the way you do it, the way you would adjust it, would be a little bit different.
And who do you have building your motor in that?
Tony, TA Engines. He's helped us out quite a bit with the motor.
And what are some of your sponsors that you have?
My dad, NJK Automotive, David Smith Racing. David Smith owns the car. He stepped up on New Year's and bought the car. Sign Depot from my town, Newtown Pools, and Duke from Hokan Gas. He's helped us out a ton. We're happy to have him on board this year. And that's about it for sponsors. I mean, we're always looking for more. And Jarvis Brothers Roofing is on the car, obviously.
If they want to sponsor you, how could they get a hold of you?
I mean, they could email me, or
That's the best way.
yeah, best way is email, or see me at the track, or whatever.
And what's your email?
Stephen PK21@gmail.com. It's STEPHEN PK21@gmail.com.
I'm just trying to help you out here. That's all.
Yeah.
You know, we always talk about. I know I always bring up the sponsors and stuff like that, but anything helps these drivers that are out there. If you're buying the oil for them to race for the year, if you're doing anything, fuel, anything that you could do, buy them a tire a week. You know, it's such a huge help to any of these guys to do any little thing you can just to get your name on the car. So just putting that out there for all the guys.
And I got a question for you. I know I'm only a couple years older than you. Stop laughing. Growing up, when I was watching NASCAR and I was getting my feet wet in it, I had people that I adored. I admired them. I was like, it was all gun-ho. I was wearing their t-shirts, their jackets. Growing up, who did you look at and who made you want to get into a car?
Well, I wasn't around modifieds too much till like the last 3-4 years, and there's a couple names. Matt Hirschman, he's definitely a really good driver. I look up to him. Ryan Priest, Teddy Christopher, and there's a couple guys you take notes from, mental notes, and just watch them to see what they do and how you can use it.
And do you call any of them up for advice or any of that when you see them?
Not really.
No?
I mean, just watching them drive.
That's great. And you're how old?
16.
There you go. See, you got to start. And I just so admire that you know how you've worked your way up in such a short time. That's amazing. So you're definitely gonna be the boy to watch. Let me tell you. Sorry, man.
Thank you.
Now this, Stephen, this car that you're racing in 2014 over at Stafford in the SK Light Modified Division, what's the history behind it? Who drove the car before?
Ryan Priest drove it. It was his backup car from Thompson, the orange 31.
So it was an SK modified?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, it was an SK modified, older style CD car. And Albert was looking to get rid of it, the car owner. So we made a couple phone calls and ended up with it. It's been a really good car. We tore it down, just went through it, and didn't really find anything wrong with it, and just been running it. It's been awesome.
As I mentioned, already 2 races into the 2014 season over at Stafford Motor Speedway. This past Friday night got rained out. What have you learned in those first 2 races, as you mentioned, from karts to legends, and now in an open wheel modified, and especially you're at Stafford Motor Speedway on a half mile. Were you intimidated at all by the car or the racetrack?
At first, but after a couple practices, I wasn't at all. It's way easier than the legend, a lot less twitchy. It's a lot. I mean, the only one thing to be nervous of, if you're going to be nervous about something, is if you get loose. It's not like a legend where you can just throw it sideways. But other than that, it just took me it took me a race to get comfortable with people around me and all that. But besides that, it's pretty good.
After the first few laps, did you think you needed more power?
Yes and no. I mean, I got to figure out how to get the car going through the corner.
He's a driver.
The answer is always yes to that question.
Go out there a few laps up, more power.
Maybe next year, maybe we'll go to SKs or hopefully move up even more. So.
When this whole season is all said and done in November, and if I ask you the question, what are you looking to accomplish in 2014? What will you be satisfied with?
My goal is just get a win or two and just keep the car straight every week, and then hopefully we can go to like Thompson at the end of the year, like Wall or just travel around a little bit, and then possibly go to move up next year.
Now, do you feel when you unload on a Friday night at Stafford that you can win?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. We got Mike Paquette. He's helping us out a ton getting the car rolling, and it's awesome working with him. And it just, I feel like we have the equipment, we have everything to do it.
And it's in a very competitive division. When the came up with that SK Light Modified division, I can't remember now, Ricky, how many years it's been now, but I said right at the start, I says, you know what? That's going to really take off. And what are they getting? 27 cars?
21.
Or 21, okay. Good field of race cars. Some good drivers have come out of that division and have gone on. Tony Membrino Jr. now, he's moved on. Chase Dowling has moved on. Ron Williams, Tommy Barrett.
Yeah.
And I know I've left some names out there, but quick on the top of my head, those drivers come to mind and, have done very, very well. And Ricky, you have to agree. I mean, that division that they started, the car count's good, the racing is good, and the talent is good.
The biggest thing that it does is it broadens the guys that are already racing. Because if I own an SK, and you have so many guys that drive an SK, but you need so much money to drive an SK. So when you get an SK Light, it's less money. It gives more opportunity for me to sell my car, and then me buy another car. So it keeps a lot of things generated and things going, and it helps out racing, being able to move the cars around, hand-me-downs, this and that. It really helps out the racing environment having the other divisions to go to.
Yeah.
And that's especially like, you know, for him, there's a lot of parts that he can get cheap because the SK guys, it's not wrong, it's just they don't use it.
Right.
So it helps out all the racing in general, having that division there, and it's a great stepping stone for the guys to help move up
Yeah,
if they like the open wheel.
yeah, and that for that reason right there, it attracts a lot of talent, and there's a lot of Gary said, there's a lot of good drivers that have moved up, like Tommy Barrett's in a tour car now, Ronnie Williams, Chase Dowling, Membrino, Cam McDermott. There's a ton of good drivers. They got, Cipriano. They got their start in SK Lights. Open wheel start at least.
And now let's get back to racing on the racetrack itself. Let's talk about turns 1 and 2. You got that pretty well down?
Yeah, I mean, the way you come about 1 and 2 and 3 or 4 are different. It just that was probably what took me the longest to get used to. Just like I said, hitting the marks every time, getting through each corner.
We're talking with Stephen Kopcik. He runs an SK Light Modified over at the Stafford Motor Speedway. The phone number that you need tonight, 203-757-1320. We are streaming online at WATR.com. You can also catch us by going to speedwaylinereport.com, and all shows are archived, and you can go back and revisit any of our shows anytime that you have the opportunity. Matt Hirschman's going to be coming up in just a few minutes. Later on, we're going to talk to Nick Teto about the NASCAR Wheel Modified Tour. We'll talk to him about the Volante Modified Racing Series. We'll also see if he took in all the racing action yesterday at Lee USA Speedway. I believe there was 34 cars there. We'll talk to him about that, along, of course, Matt Hirschman, the winner yesterday of the open wheel modified event. We'll get his thoughts on his victory, a big money win. So what other racetracks, Stephen, getting back to you and your SK Light Modified, what other racetracks do you want to maybe visit in 2014?
If we have a good season, hit all our goals for Stafford, and everything goes good, I'd like to do like a couple of the end of the year shows, like Walt Stadium's Turkey Derby or Thompson's World Series. Just do a few little things just to do something else besides Stafford, just to get a little more experience.
What about maybe down in the Speedboat? Might be their last year.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind driving a car there. I drove a Legend there for 2 years. I'd love to see what an SK Light is like there.
And Ricky, what makes you say that?
Well, the auction's coming whether they want to or not.
Well, we understand it, but he may be able to get down there this year.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I mean, you ran the Legends car there, and did you like Waterford racing your Legend?
Waterford's an awesome track. It's a little big for a Legend, but it's still a lot of fun, and it's a great facility. I just hope it stays around.
Yeah, I think everybody is hoping on that as well. Well, Stephen, I want to thank you and your dad for making the trip up from Newtown. You're more than welcome to stay around for the remainder of the show. Good luck in the rest of the 2014 season with your SK Light Modified at Stafford.
Thank you, Gary.
You're very welcome. Stephen Kopcik joining us tonight here in our Waterbury studio. We're going to take a commercial break. When we come back, we'll be all set to talk to the big winner yesterday at Lee USA Speedway, Matt Hirschman. He's up next.
Come to Shaler Acura.
You got the drop spindle car, or does Jarvis?
I'm listening to them name off names, and I'm like, I watch their fathers.
See, normally I would bring the mic over, that mic over there.
No, we're fine.
Well, no, now you'll have it over like that.
Yeah, sorry, I've been hitting
He's got
them
the drop spindle.
and playing footsie.
Albert really didn't want to sell the car. First car.
Matt was okay with that?
Yeah, he was fine, yeah.
And I'm going to take him right to this time. When you get him on the phone, Gary's going to take it right to the top of the hour.
Okay.
Chassis, that's Ronnie Williams chassis. The next thing you know,
Yeah, I don't think you really need a drop spindle car. I don't see it.
definitely not SK Lights, but Albert's got 2 108 cars. So
Mics are cold, video's running.
Yeah, video.
Comes with a 7-year or 100,000-mile
Ask.
plus and now all three cars are the same. And that old part,
Before I was
part,
doing something different, I tell you,
that was the whole reason for upgrade.
Blushing at him.
This car came up,
Light it up a
Heather
little.
Stables there.
Did you get everything you wanted up?
There you go.
Welcome back
It's
to
actually
the
at
Speedway
CD
Line
and,
Report, presented to you
we're
by
going through
Shaler
it for the first
Acura of Matt.
race this year.
Your car, your choice, the Auto Body Association of Connecticut.
Welcome back, everyone. Gary Danko here in our Waterbury studio, right alongside Rocket Rick Rotundo, our guest co-host tonight. She does mud racing, Tina O. She's out of Wallingford, Connecticut. And before we get Matt Hirschman on the line here, Tina and Rick, a longtime racing competitor, Les Hinckley, talented driver. His dad raced cars as well. Les's son, Alan, who's 8 years old, is going through some medical issues right now. And they are going to be having a big thing coming up on June the 7th. Tickets are $25. Kids 4 and under are free. If you'd like to make a donation, you could go to the following website, www.gofundme.com/AFKGAW. Now for tickets, you can also check out go to on Facebook, the benefit for Alan Hinckley. Now once again, this benefit is going to be coming up on June 7th from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Sonny's Place, 349 Main Street in Somers, Connecticut. Now once again, for tickets for this benefit coming up on June the 7th, you can go on Facebook to the benefit for Alan Hinckley. Once again, that is on June 7th, 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. for Sonny's Place. And once again, this is for Alan Hinckley, 8-year-old son of Tracy and Les Hinckley of Windsor Locks, and had been going through some scary, difficult medical issues over the last couple of months. So any support that you can reach out to the Hinckley family and this benefit coming up on June the 7th would be a good way to do that. So check that out. Once again, for more information on this, the benefit for Alan Hinckley, just find them on Facebook, benefit for Alan Hinckley. And we'll be telling you more about this in the up and coming weeks here on Speedway Line Report Radio. Our next guest, he's all ready to go. He sat in victory lane once again when it comes to open wheel modified races. The name that should come to mind is my next guest, Matt Hirschman, now joins us. Matt, how are you tonight? Congratulations. I appreciate that. Right alongside is Ricky Rotundo from R&R Fabrication. Tina O is our guest co-host tonight. Let's talk about your victory yesterday. You started deep in the pack. I believe it was what, back somewhere about 23rd, 24th?
We had to come through the Conti. The heat races are very competitive. There was 4 heats. My heat race in particular, the 3rd and 4th place cars stayed side by side the entire heat race. And Todd Zegedy and I exchanged the 5th place, and we were side by side for pretty much throughout the whole heat race. And I came out in 6th, but really, it probably worked out as a blessing for me because in the Conti I was able to get a better read on what I had for a car, and at that point, I don't believe it was a winning car. And we came through the Conti, won the Conti, made some adjustments, and ended up starting 21st.
I got a question for you. When you're in the lead, do you feel more pressure to hold the pack off, or would you rather lay back to 2nd or 3rd to the last minute, knowing you're going to make the pass and let them be surprised by yourself?
Well, it all depends. This particular race had lap money going to the leader, so it would have been nice to start up front or closer to the front and maybe collect a little bit of that. But in this race, realistically, I had no chance of leading any laps early. It was going to have to come through strategy and just being there at the end. But in any race, I'd say it's usually always better to be the leader. But it's always more fun if you're pursuing the lead than having to try and hold someone off.
And I think it was Denny Hamlin that said all he does is win races. Apparently they never met you, because all you do is win the big money races. I got to give you credit. You get your strategy set and you go out there and you perform on the high stage of when it comes to win the big races.
I appreciate that. I got off to a very slow start this year, and I'm not really sure what it was. Last year had the best year of my career. Won over half my races. I think it was 20 out of 38 starts, which was something that I just, even throughout the entire off season or whatever, I don't know. That was probably one of my greatest statistical accomplishments that I may ever have. And I just did not pick up where we left off by winning the Turkey Derby at the end of the year. North-South Shootout Turkey Derby in November, and I don't know what happened, but it just it didn't click here in February in Florida. I mean, we had good finishes, but didn't find victory lane, and the same could be said for the month of April. So, but we got a win the week prior to this, the Bullring Bash at Lee. It was the first ROC race, which ROC has really been good for me the last couple of years. So it seemed like we picked up where we left off there, and it was a needed morale boost for me, and I think for the entire team, and it carried over into this week, and now I'm feeling like I'm ready to roll, and let's try and continue the success we've had over the last 2 years, and make this season another great one.
We're talking with Matt Hirschman, who won the Bullring Bash 100 yesterday afternoon at Lee USA Speedway in Lee, New Hampshire. And it was the first event for the Tri-Track Open Modified Series, which will pay a points purse to competitors competing in the event at Lee, the Open Modified Show at Star Speedway in Upping, New Hampshire on June 14th, and then the Open Modified Show at Seekonk on July 23rd. And what do you think of this whole concept, Matt, that the racing guys have put together?
I love it. The open shows have always been my favorite shows, but to tie them together, the existing race at Star and Seekonk, which has been going for quite a while, to tie them, to add another event, tie the three of them together, I think it's going to strengthen all of them. I love the effort that the racing guys and the Long Island Mod Maniac have put into it. They got a good turnout yesterday of 34 cars. I know they were looking for closer or maybe even over 40 at one time. It was looking optimistic for that. But they got nothing to be ashamed of. That's above and beyond, I think, what probably any modified race has really seen this year. And like I said, I just enjoy the open shows. I like the format. I like the tire rules. It just really suits my style, I guess, and seem to really perform well in them.
Matt, I know you're only as good as your last race. We all know that. Everybody remembers the last winter. But how do you get over that hardship that you over the winter time where you said you were coming off of a great season last year, and first race out, it just didn't seem to hook like you wanted it to? How do you get through that? Do you call your guys together and have a powwow? Or do you just mentally get ready to just go out there and start fresh?
Yeah, I agree. I've always said that you're only as good as your last race, and like I said, I've always believed in momentum. And sometimes when you're used to winning, you could become accustomed to winning, and you don't. You start to doubt yourself and the things you're doing. But I think the biggest thing for me was just realizing that, and nothing's changed. Just stick to the program. Stick to what's worked for you. A couple of races this year, I've had flat tires where I probably didn't have a flat tire all last year. It's just things like that you can't control. And like I said, the main thing for me probably was just to stick to the program, and when things turn around, you hopefully you start winning again. And now that you feel like everybody's spirits and morale is up, and hopefully we just continue to roll on that.
Matt, whose car did you race yesterday?
Yesterday I was in the J&J Motorsports 59. It's the same car that we've won the SBM at Star 2 years in a row. We primarily use it for open shows, some local competition here at Mahoning Valley in Pennsylvania. We've already done MRS races with it. We were in Florida with it. So that's what we were in yesterday for the Bullring Bash at Lee, and we'll be in that again for Star, and then the Seekonk Open Show the past probably 3-4 years I've been with Bob Horns number 50, and we're going to continue to build on what we've done there with him. We finished second 3 years ago, won it 2 years ago, and last year we were in the top 5 again. So looking forward to all 3 of these open shows. I know I stand a real good chance in all of them.
How was the tour going for you, Matt?
Well, that's part of that slow start I got off to. You know, last year I brought my own stuff to the World Series at Thompson, and I think we turned a lot of heads there. First tour race I'd ever done was my own 60 team, and we started 7th and drove our way to the lead, past Santos for the lead. Got tangled up a little bit after the pit stop in that race, so we didn't end up with the end result I think we were capable of. But like I said, came back to Thompson for the icebreaker with the same package, and you know, just things didn't go our way. A lot of bad restart lines late, and then kind of the same thing for Stafford. Came in there, you know, with the first race with teaming back up with the Darling team. High expectations. They've had a good track record at Stafford, and you know, didn't have the speed or the results that I think we were all looking for. But we've got something to build on. It was our first race back together. You know, we'll see if we can improve on that coming up here at weeks.
Matt, getting back to yesterday's event at Lee USA Speedway, the Bull Ring Bash 100, what was it like? How did you stay out of trouble working your way up toward the front?
Starting where I was going to start, like I said, I knew it was going to be a matter of strategy and just being there at the end. And you know, I basically dropped to the rear and was conserving tires. At that time, Jeff Rocco was leading, and our times we were running the same speed. I think everybody knows Lee is very abrasive. It's very slick. So once things got singled out, I think pretty much the entire field, a lot of guys were conserving tires and riding, and you know, first place was going the same speed as last place. Nobody was getting lapped. So, like I said, it wasn't until about halfway that caution came close to 50. I pitted along with many others, and then what really set it up was that next caution is what I needed, which was probably around 75. And that's when more teams pitted, and from there the race was on, and it was probably exciting to watch the last 25 laps. And we were able to stay ahead of the cars that pitted the latest, and was able to move through and eventually take the lead from Steve Massey and lead the last 10 laps. It got pretty crazy. Some cars got torn up there in the last 10 laps with a lot of restarts. So I was glad that I was able to get out front ahead of that racing that went on, where some things happened.
Well, Matt, thanks for spending some time with us tonight on this edition of Speedway Line Report Radio. Once again, congratulations to you and your team on the win yesterday in the Bull Ring Bash 100 at Lee USA Speedway. I look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks over at Stafford Motor Speedway, because that will be the next stop for the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour.
Thanks for having me. Hopefully we'll get to talk again sometime this year.
All right, thank you, Matt. Matt Hirschman joining us tonight on this edition of Speedway Line Report Radio. Of course, he's going to be doing another radio interview coming up on Victory Lane Radio with Eric LaFleche and the rest of the crew. So make sure you check out Victory Lane Radio. Those guys certainly do a great job. Right now, we're going to break for national news, and then when we come back, we're going to talk to Nick Tito from YankeeRacer.com.
The radio station for news, talk, and entertainment.
Keep that rolling, Mike Sokol.
You really keep that rolling?
Required to disclose.
Good question. That was right.
Thanks.
Good.
I got the little tap from him. I'm like,
Well, yeah,
I was gonna hit you, but you were like,
I'm
Someone right now.
lackadaisic, but
one thing I learned from Jack Carew Jr.
You always gotta be
Shut
ready.
that down, please.
yeah.
Make sure you have alien.
Well, there's a lot. I mean,
First time
A couple weeks ago.
We need to have a benefit
Well, no.
for you.
Notice my freaky little talent.
No, you don't.
Freaky little.
You gotta
It's,
have luck.
don't know how it's called, but it's nothing,
mean,
it's
it's
nothing
like-
serious.
It's not
He's a great
attached to nothing,
driver.
is it? Because it's
It
moving.
What he did.
And you know how I went online? You know how you get rid of
Push it
that?
around.
You either go to the dermatologist, they drain it,
Yeah.
or
Is it
they say,
hard?
yeah,
Oh, Lord.
they say take a book, like a Bible.
Oh, yeah.
That's what they say to do, I'm telling you.
That's just like the old tradition. If you get a Stein right, you take your mother's wedding ring and brush your eyes, and it's supposed to
No,
let
they
the
say
Stein.
go, put it in, game.
How did you catch that?
Jeff Rocco?
You've been around some weird people, haven't you?
No,
Here we go.
Yeah.
we're rolling?
Yep, we're rolling.
Presented to you by Shaler Acura of Manchester, Connecticut.
And your car, your choice, the Auto Body Association of Connecticut.
Welcome back, everyone. Gary Danko here in our Waterbury studio at WATR 1320 AM. We're also streaming online at WATR.com. You can also catch us by going to speedwaylinereport.com. Former modified driver Tom Ormsby Tina, who used to race at Plainville Stadium, and he ran at Riverside, and you name it, he ran there. He is the webmaster of speedwaylinereport.com. It gets my show up onto his website. Robert Baggett, the YouTube guy, is here in our Waterbury studio. Appreciate everything he's been doing for us as well. Of course, Tom Graves, right along, or actually across from Ricky and Tina and myself. He pushes all the buttons. He gets all of my guests on the phone. And of course, Ricky Rotundo, my co-host from R&R Fabrication. And Ricky, what's your slogan on your thing? If I can see it, I can make it. No,
No, it's, if you could see it, I can make it.
oh, okay. You got that, Tina?
Might have to put that to the test.
Well,
I'll be back on a future date to report.
Eric Burnt, when I first got involved with them in the late 90s, you know, making the bodies on the car, they did put it to the test because they said, if you could see it, you could make it. I said, yeah, if you guys could see it, I said, I can make it. They gave me a picture of the car and says, here, put this body on that car.
Oh, good Lord. Wow.
So I put that body on that car. You know, there was no parts. It was the one that they flipped over at Stafford there.
On
You
the
know,
back straightaway.
On the back
Sure.
straightaway. There was nothing left to the car and everything else. And I never made the Troy car parts and stuff like that. They says, can you do that? I says, yep, my mouth said I can, so I'm going to do it. And I did it. So it's
Very
just
cool.
one of them things, you're a fabricator.
Very cool.
And when I stopped at the race shop a couple of weeks ago to see Eric Burnt, I got a door skin from one of the cars from over the years, a 54 that Eric drove, and of course now that is over in my NASCAR playroom. So anyways, I got quite a few of them. I got one of Frank Rocco's, I've got one of Kenny Horton's, I think I've got Matt Gallo's car, so we're
Nice.
collecting them as they go along, the door skins. And there's another one that I got one from John Montesano. Speaking of that, leads me right into John Montesano, JM Montesano Auto Body, located in New Haven, Connecticut. So when it comes to collision work, and you've been into an accident, and you live in and around the New Haven area, then guess what? You need to stop over and see the good folks at JM Montesano Auto Body Works. Once again, they are specialists in auto collision. Tina, all of their work is guaranteed. They're located at 390 Lombard Street in New Haven, Connecticut. You can give them a call at 203-865-1389. John Montesano has a SK modified that he competes with over at the Waterford Speed Bowl. Don't believe he's gotten his race car out there yet, but he is working on things and should be out very, very soon. But of course, when it comes to auto body work, him and his staff, they certainly do a great job. Of course, John's father used to race over the years at West Haven Speedway, and you name it. His father ran a lot of racetracks and did very, very well back in the days when he raced. And so, of course, their business, the auto body business, that comes first, and that's why they are specialists when it comes to auto collision, because they do really, really good work. I know. I see the work that they do, and once again, they're located at 390 Lombard Street, New Haven, Connecticut, for JM Montesano Auto Body Works.
You know, I haven't had the need for a body shop, thank goodness. Now that I said that, probably my ride home I'll be calling him. But I have talked to John personally a couple times, and he is one of the most sincere, laid-back guys. I mean, as busy as his phone is going in the background, he takes the time. So you can tell that's the type of gentleman you want to put the business to. So if you need him, give him a call. He's a really good guy to talk to.
Absolutely. Our next guest, he's going to be all set and ready to go. Nick Tito from Yankee Racer. SpeedwayLarneyPortRadio.com. This show is also being brought to you by Embroidery Works, J.M. Montesano Auto Body, Jim's Lawn Care Service, Grotto Restaurant, and the Auto Body Association of Connecticut. Your car, your choice. So far, tonight, we've heard from Stephen Kopcik, who runs an SK Light Modified. He's still here in our Waterbury studio. And we heard from Matt Hirschman just a couple of minutes ago talking about his win yesterday at Lee USA Speedway. And of course, Tina O, who was our guest co-host tonight, she races, she does mud racing. And once again, what's your website again, or email address?
My email address, if you'd like any information, is ftoracing@aol.com. Any questions you have, anything. I'd like to get people enlightened on the sport of mud drag racing. It's not deep bog racing, but it's 3,000 horsepower open wheel cars drag racing on the dirt, and it's a lot of fun.
Okay. And did you capture all that?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got all of that. Great.
Yeah.
And Tom Graves is back from getting Nick Teto from YankeeRacer.com, and he's all set to go. Nick, how are you tonight? Wow, great to have you back on the show. You've been following motorsports for many, many years. You have a great website, YankeeRacer.com. I want to talk to you about a lot of different things. Let's kick off the conversation. Were you at Lee USA Speedway yesterday?
Yes, it was a little later than I expected, but I got there for the modified race and the cash for cash. I got to see the headline race, and they had a good crowd. And considering the date the event was held on, I think they really did well as far as the weather. Couldn't have asked for better weather for the crowd. They supported it. Better than 30 cars for the event. And a good race. I mean, you got a little bogged down at the end, the last, 15, 20 laps there with a bunch of cautions. Otherwise, the race was really good, and glad to see modified teams support the tri-track Open Competition Series here.
Yeah, there was 34 cars. We talked about that with Matt Hirschman. Any surprise drivers and teams that were there, and maybe some surprises that were not there?
Well, I mean, you get surprises in the sense of, Keith Rocco or someone that, along those lines, who's just been so dominant in the early part of the season with racing. Do you expect someone like him to be there just because you want to see how they stack up against the competition for a bigger event like this? But at the same time, Mother's Day is an important day, depending on, what your family situation is, and that's not always an easy thing to work that into your family schedule, especially if you're racing on a Friday or Saturday night. Sundays may be the family day by default anyway, so that's kind of understandable there. Todd Zaragoza was kind of a pleasant surprise for him showing up with his SK Modified, and he did really good, all things considered. He got a 7th or an 8th out of it, and ended up getting going up at the end. They had a pretty good run with their SK piece. I was surprised that Dennis Terry made the trip up there. Woody Thickett with Stan Mertz's cars. There were some different teams I wasn't really expecting up there. Bobby Kay showed up with a brand new Troyer car. So there's some different people that I hadn't seen in the events I've been to this year. So that's good that you have, by the time May rolls around here, some teams that weren't at some early events now have their cars together or are able to come up and make the trip to this race. So that's always good that you get enough variety of people, even if someone you expect to show up isn't there, you have other people to fill the void. So I think they did pretty good with the turnout they got for cars.
And as you mentioned, you were on hand. Of course, Sean Corshane, race day CT, was also on hand. A lot of media on tap yesterday for the big event.
Yeah, certainly. Steve 51 was up there, Chrome Horn. They had live coverage of the event, which I think is excellent, especially you look at we kind of take it for granted in other sports, the fact that you can follow things live, whether it be through a video or social media. And short track racing really hasn't done that organized yet, but you do have excellent media outlets that are able to give you that play-by-play coverage, and the fact that you have, the veterans like Howie Hodge and Alan Ward's there with his program, and just, in fact, Holly Reed, I think, was up there. Just everybody that you'd expect of that clique of racing, the essential people were all there. So it's good to see that certainly the people you're familiar with going to race are able to attend the event. You kind of get to know each other in that sense, just because you know, the drivers, media, team owners, crew members, whatever the case is, you're all going to the same events week in and week out. So it's kind of like its own little community.
Hi Nick, how you doing tonight? When you see the new generation drivers, these young kids, such as Steven, who's sitting next to me here, who's doing phenomenal, do you see any comparison to their predecessors, their dads who used to drive? Do you see any resemblance, or, you know, say to yourself, oh, that's in that kid's blood, it's going to happen?
Is there any particular driver that you have in mind?
Well, you know, all these kids are new to me. Every time Steven mentioned a name, I was picturing their fathers that I used to watch. You know, Ronnie Rocco's son is out there, I believe, and Eric Burnt, I watched his father race for years. You know, these kids coming up through the ladders, they've been around it all their life, but do you see any resemblance in their driving the way their fathers used to drive?
I mean, probably the only big comparison I can give, just because I don't have that much to recall prior to, say, the late 90s or mid 90s even, would be Matt Hirschman and Tony. Just, they have a similar way of going about it, where you know they're going to be there at the end. They're not going to be the person that's going to be up there hard charging to get up there and lead the first lap, but they're incredibly consistent. They're always going to be there spreading for a win, and, you know, Matt just has a way of going about leading over competition shows, and it really is something to watch him go. I mean, I was at the ball for the Turkey Derby last fall, and he had a speeding penalty, he puts it in the back of the field, was almost a lap down, and about halfway through the race and came back and won it. I figured he had no chance to win in that race, and he came back and won it well. So it's just, he probably has that quiet confidence that that's probably the best comparison I can give. And unfortunately, the problem is I don't have enough years to go back and see the Ronnie Rocco race or some of these other drivers.
Okay. Making me feel old here.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to see Ronnie, like you did, Tina, race at Plainville Stadium and Riverside Park Speedway, and even up at Stafford. I know he drove the Sherry Cup, number 12 up there, and of course Ronnie Rocco, a ton of talent, but we certainly know the talent that Keith Rocco has, and Jeff Rocco, who's our guest co-host last week, is really starting to come along as well with his racing operation and the teams that he runs for, Ricky.
Yeah, there's no doubt that, you know, there's all comparisons, you know, with all the guys you can see here and there, but it was like he was talking about the Hirschmans, and they are the most patient drivers out there. No matter what happens, it's like it doesn't get them razzled. You know, he was talking about what happened with Matt. I can remember some years back when Tony was driving his 48 car, leading the race at Thompson, gets turned around by like a lap car because of a wrong thing happens, goes through the grass, doesn't bring out the caution, keeps going. He's, you know, all the way in the back now, just waits, comes down pit road, goes back out there, you know, a few things happen, next thing you know, he wins the race. It's like, he never got razzled no matter what happened, and that's the way, you know, Matt's the same way. It doesn't matter, they know there's a lot of race left, they know when to turn it on and when they can cruise, and they get it done.
Right. Nick, how old are you? You're what, 20-something, right? I know. I remember when you first got going in this sport, and you've come a long way in your coverage of motorsports. You got a great website, yankeeracer.com, and you certainly you know, do a great job, no question about that. Now, your grandfather, I believe, was what, Roland LaPierre?
That's correct. Yeah, he did a pretty good stint in racing. Got started probably about my age now, so it kind of gives you a perspective. You know, how much later when you compare with people now that are, I think one of the drivers at Lee yesterday was 14 or 15, racing in a modified. So it's a little different in trying to get your career started when you're almost twice the age of some of the people that are out there now in full body cars racing. So in that sense, it really hurt his career not getting started sooner. And of course, you can always argue not having better equipment or better rides at the time. But at the end of the day, you make do the best with what you have. That never changes. And the fact that he was able to go out there and really do a good job as far as Westboro is concerned, when a good share of races there, then like the fact that just amazes me. And you go to races and up at Warford Speedbowl, we won, I think, back-to-back or 2 out of 3 in 78, and he wasn't even a track regular there. I mean, that's something that you just don't see anymore, or hardly anymore. Somebody being all the local drivers on their home turf, it's such a rarity. And you go back to some other results, and he gets a second or a third place finish. Sometimes I think Thompson in 80 or 81, and the guy that wins it is Richie Evans. So it's kind of frustrating. You're like, wow, we got third, could have won the thing, but you lost to the Raptor Roman. So in that sense, it's kind of, par for the course, and you lose to Richie. But it's something that he just really had an excellent knack for race cars, is my understanding of it, because he really helped revitalize the final years of his father's career in the late 60s back to the old Norwood Arena, and they got a couple wins in 68, and they good for top 10 in points, I believe, that year, and they came back in 69 and beat Freddie Cicero and Eddie Slemke to win the last modified race at Norwood before they got rid of the mods at the end of the 69 season. So he finally got done racing about 1988. I never actually got to see him race except for a couple of VHS movies out. But needless to say, he's been an incredible influence in my life and trying to understand racing and all the countless questions I've had and follow my last passion.
And you mentioned Richie Evans, of course, the Rapid Roman. What a bunch of talent that man had. I mean, saw him win many races. Of course, at that time I wasn't in the media. I was just a race fan going to races, whether it was at Stafford or Oswego or Thompson or Waterford or me and my brother, and of course our good friend Sonny Richards would make the trip to a lot of racetracks. Sonny Richards, of course, was the field director for Speedway Scene, and I would do a lot of traveling with them, and I got to see Richie Evans and Jared Cook and Jeff Bodine and Maynard Troyer, back in the day, and all a bunch of great race car drivers, and certainly knew how to get the job done. No question about that. Now, now the Burns, of course, I got to see Timmy and Tommy race over at the Plainville Stadium, and of course we know that Ronnie Burnt had many drivers over the years, including Chapman Brino.
Yep.
Stan Greger,
Teddy Christopher,
yeah, who was the '92 SK Modified champion
right.
at Waterford Speedway, and the list just goes on and on and on. But let's get back with Nick Teto, our fourth guest of the evening here on Speedway Line Report Radio. He is the webmaster of YankeeRacer.com, and let's talk about the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour, Nick. So far, we're 2 races in. Justin Bonsignore, the big winner at the Icebreaker at Thompson. And then, of course, the latest winner was Bobby Santos in the Spring Sizzler. Well, let's first start with Thompson. What did you take away from that race?
That was one of those races that you had a lot of change. That's probably the most drastic season I've seen, that just driver and team changes that I can recall in probably the last 5 to 10 years. I just haven't seen a year where that many teams have a new look going into the next season. Pickett, Zaggy having his ride, Colby, Christopher, any name driver, Mike DeFank not running full time, any name driver you could think of probably hasn't had some change going into this season. So that was the huge unknown going into this year. Who's going to really, prevail out of this whole group of new things going into this season at Thompson? And of course, Thompson had a new look with the road course stuff, so that was a little bit exciting to see how that facility has been redone. And Thompson, I thought, was a really good race. Bonsignore did a great job. Pickett, those 2 guys just flat out put on a great race up there. The fact that Bonsignore had so much that they had done as far as revamping their program, going to Staffville, going to 8 horsepower with their team, and you start to see some of that way back in Florida, where they almost had a top 5 at Daytona and won a couple of the races at New Smyrna too. So they obviously kept a lot of their momentum going this season. Pickett, that was one of those teams that you kind of heard rumors, or no, not rumors, but rumblings of this could be a team to watch this year. And they've really been nothing but impressive. The fact that Pickett has got back-to-back top 5s. He's put a really good run together to open this season, and it wouldn't surprise me if he wins a race here in the next couple of shows. And then Lee was good too. I think he's one of those guys that kind of got overlooked at the last half of the year. He was probably one of the more consistent cars, and he got into the wreck up in turn one. So it's tough to put on a good race. I think it's good to see the crowd support a place like that where there was so much question because of the change in their schedule. So I mean, it's just a lot of things, unfortunately, that overshadow what otherwise is a great race day. But it's those two teams I think are going to be among the best this year, just because they have their stuff together to open the season. They can just build on refining their program.
What's your take so far, 2 races in on the NASCAR Wheel Modified Tour with Teddy Christopher?
I talked about Jim and Teddy both at Thompson, and that's one of the things that is going to be very interesting because they are running 2 cars. Teddy has his own engine, and Bob has the new car. It's one of the old 7 New York cars, I believe, or one of the cars that
Correct.
Romanian had in his stable recently, and the fact that they're trying to run this as a 2-car thing, all under one group, and it's going to be tough. I think it's one of those things, unfortunately, that when you're not as good a career as Ted Christopher's had, for most drivers finishing in 5th or finishing in the top 10 is a good day, but with the standards that Ted had in some of the the last 10 years, unfortunately, you always set the bar to what those ideal seasons were. And it's going to be something they're going to have to build. I think they can definitely win a couple races this year. To me, it's not off the bat the same thing he had back when he was with Eddie Whalen and they were just put in with him and Brad LaFontaine. So it gives them a little time to build that chemistry up and get this program there. But the fact that they've got, I believe, 2 top 10 finishes to open the season when they're still trying to get things acclimated. Bob's been really optimistic this year that this could be the year if things click. They could have something to contend with. This is the best equipment that he's had with this operation. Ted's record is, among the best of anybody in New England. So the fact that they could pull off 2 or 3 wins, knowing if they can get the combination right, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, they were close to Riverhead in the past with Ted, and he got spun late at Riverhead, and he did excellent cars time and time again in New Hampshire, and they're just 2 or 3 tracks, maybe both tracks that he's always good at no matter what car he's driving in over the years. So if he can get a couple of wins, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, that's just, I'm not going to doubt TC. He knows his way around the modified tour.
No question. No question.
Nick, what's your thought on Tommy Barrett at the number 22? Any predictions for him this year? Any gut feelings on how that might play out?
I think he'll win a race. I mean, the bottom line with him is that I think a lot of people look at the fact that you're replacing a legend, and so it's no different than Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers or any of those things where you just are used to somebody being there forever in racing in this case, and then they're not there at the track every week. In the case of Mike Stefanik, so any of the thing he has big shoes to fill in that regard. But at the same time, I think he's not necessarily appreciated the level he should be, because the fact that he got only his I think only his 4th or 5th tour start, he's already got a pole, and he had a shot at winning the Sizzler, ran up in the top 2 or 3, and kind of got shuffled back late. The fact that they had to crash in practice at the icebreaker, had to go get the back of the car, started shotgun the field, made it back up in the top 10, and then the ignition died. So, we all know what Chris Howard has in terms of the operation. That's top flight equipment. They definitely know what they're doing. Brad LaFontaine is probably one of the most successful crew chiefs in the modified tour history between Jeff Fuller and Ted Christopher, Stefanik. I mean, he just knows how to work on race cars and knows how to make the combination click. I think part of it's going to be getting Barrett comfortable with what the circuit is. It's not the same as the Valetti Modified Racing Series. That's probably the biggest adjustment he has to have. But at the end of the day, it's still a modified race car. He knows Thompson. He knows Stafford. He knows probably all but 2 or 3 of the tracks of the entire schedule because he's had to drive them the last couple of years. So I don't think it's as big of an adjustment as some people would would like to make it, and I think they'll be a good team. I think they might end up in the top 10 in points, maybe get a win this year, but I'm confident that operation, between Chris, Brad, and Tommy, they've got a good operation together. They'll be okay.
Okay. Hey, Nick, we're running up, we've got about a minute left, but I want to appreciate your time tonight on Speedway Line Report Radio. We'll certainly get you back throughout the course of the season here on Speedway Line Report Radio. Once again, if people want to check out your website, yankeeracer.com, you do a great job. I'll look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks over at Stafford for the modified tour race coming up on that Friday night, Memorial Day weekend.
Looking forward to the CSR Harley Davidson 125 at Stafford Memorial Day weekend.
Very good. Thanks. Nick Teto joining us tonight on this edition of Speedway Line Report Radio. Tina, thanks for dropping by the Waterbury studio. You're going to join us probably, maybe once, twice a month?
I look forward to it. Thank you very much for having me.
And of course, you'll be joining Ricky and I. And of course, if you need anything made, R&R Fabrication. What's your slogan again?
If you can see it, I can make it.
And you can see I can make it. And a big thank you to all of our guests tonight that joined us on this edition of Speedway Line Report Radio. For Tina, Ricky, all of my guests, the YouTube guy, Robert Baggett, Tom Ormsby, Tom Graves, I'm Gary Danko. We'll look forward to seeing you, seeing you and talking to you next Monday night here on Speedway Line Report Radio. Good night.
Preceding has been a GMD production. Don't forget to listen to Gary next Monday night for more auto racing news on the Speedway Line Report. And in case you didn't catch the entire program,
Gives you an idea of what we do. Okay.
Might get pixelated though if it's in full screen.
Hey, I'm Tina. How are you?
How you doing?
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome to the motorsports capital of the world. We're in Indianapolis, Indiana, here at the fairgrounds for the Four-Wheel Jamboree Nationals presented by E3 Spark Plugs. Ken Stout and Brian Olson to call the action for you, and this event is always a lot of fun. Of course, Rob Klepper also in the house to get us up to speed with what we're going to see here today. So let's get it down to Rob.
That's me.
Well, guys, here at the Indiana State Fairgrounds, it's time to go race in Class 5 Unlimited style with the mud drags. Now, I was approved to run 180-foot course, and this is what they gave me to run, this nice little scooter. They said if we were racing the 150-foot course, well, I might have a motorcycle or a quad, but we're going that far, they gave me a scooter. Everyone else is going to have a bad piece of machinery, bad fast. Track record at 180 feet, boys, in Class 5, 2.15 with a 1. Big race cars, a lot of horsepower. If you run the big block underneath the hood, 2,450-pound minimum weight, that's with the driver. Small block, 2,250-pound minimum weight. 150-inch maximum wheelbase. You got the big 45-inch tires on the back. If you got Mickey Thompson's, they let you go to 46. Varitrax up in front. Cool thing, though, a lot of horsepower, as I mentioned. Turbocharge it, supercharge it. You got a NOS bottle, hey, congratulations, you can toss it on. But no nitro, methane, they don't like that. Class 5, very fast here. It's going to be fun to watch them in the 80 mile.
Now you will notice that all these cars we see here today will not be equipped with a lunchbox, much like Rob Klepper's little scooter. That's how long it takes him to negotiate the course. But Brian, let's talk about these cars because they are incredibly fast. We're talking about sub 2.5-second runs.
Yeah, when you're on the mud and you're trying to do that, it's one thing to do it on pavement or asphalt,
Tina Olszewski.
concrete, whatever. But when you're doing
And
it on
then
the
there's
dirt,
my husband
you've got a lot of
right
speed.
there.
Oh, Frank.
It takes a lot more to
He
make
has his
these
own
things
car.
go fast
Now I'm going to
than
speed
what
it
you
up
might
just to
think.
get so that you
That
guys can
is
see all the
very
videos,
quick.
if you don't mind.
Yeah.
And
Do a little bit of chassis adjustments here,
You ran it.
and see what I can do to find a better line, and I hope the track comes around later on in the field today.
What was the problem out there? Did just was not set up for that type of track or what?
It was a little loose. It was like driving on ice. I had my hands full, and I just lost the run on that pass.
Shock adjustment, four-link adjustment, ladder bar, whatever the configuration, it takes a lot to make these things work. As Tina O, and holding on, you'd set to go here.
Yeah, that thing is a rocket ship right there. She does an awesome job at 2:44. Not good enough for the quickest pass of the day, but right there in the hunt.
And probably, Ken, one of the straightest runs that we've seen so far. Let's go on board.
They immediately countered that thing as well.
Tina Olszewski, round number 1, 2:44 with a 1. And she thought she ran a 3, but got to be happy with that. Right now, sitting in that 3rd spot. But talk about that first run, Tina.
Oh my God, it felt so good. I couldn't wait to get in the seat today. It was just, my heart started pounding about a minute before we fired the car up, and as soon as the motor fired, everything was game on, and it was just awesome. I can't wait for the second round.
It's the best feeling in the world when you get inside of the car.
Here.
Frank with a good lap right there.
Sorry.
The racing. Keep your eyes on the far. Of course, dead nut straight. Look at that lap time. 2.25 seconds. That is getting it done.
But you can see there's different. There's rear engine cars, front engine cars. There's all kinds of.
What class are you in?
Well, we're all in the same class. I'm in the open class.
There's Tina's husband in the far lane. Frank.
He doesn't have his own title. It's Tina's husband.
Frank with a good lap right there. 2:33. That's
Do you ever get to race against him?
He is a tenth better than his wife. And another picture-perfect run, just a little bobble.
I set up the
right
fuel
there at the
systems
finish
for
line.
both cars
Great
before
job.
every race, and he sets up the chassis. Can you go out of that and then go to the other one?
Byron Tiki and the bad habit. Byron out first, and I'll tell you, some of those rear engine or mid-engine.
And punching Gravel Rama. 30.
One word?
Yep, Gravel Rama, and then the number 37.
I know he's all shaved. I was waiting to say something.
Perfect.
So, cameras are on.
This is a sand drag that I do every year, and I hold 10 years running fastest woman, which I hate, and then I've also got overall. This is a 300-foot drag strip, sand drag strip.
Same car?
Yep. Yep, that's me in the far lane. I'm the only girl in the open class.
Okay.
They have a women's class, they won't let me run it.
How long you been doing this?
Since 96, this event. But it's the biggest four-wheel drive show in New England, in the United States, not Ohio. I'm running a big bag. That's one of the fastest cars out there, and he didn't like me being in the finals. And I set the record out there for that one. And then if you just hit, there's one quick one. You just hit backspace or something, yeah. Real quick here. Actually,
Now, Tina also has ties to short track racing too.
so I got my feet wet.
What kind of engine?
It's a Chevy. It's based on a Chevy. Damn! So that's sand dragging and mud racing. So you see we don't get dirty.
Yeah.
They do have the deep bog stuff. I'm not a mud bogger. I'm a mud racer.
And we want to explain.
Yeah, and it's a little different. Mud
Okay.
bogging, they love to get dirty and wet and, jack it up and all that. Not me. No, I'm good. And I like to go real fast, so that's my goal.
All right. That's all good?
Is this the 2X guy you were telling me about?
What size do
Are
you
you
take?
2X?
No, I'm bigger than that.
Oh, come on.